In the time that has passed since the young lady immolated herself at the bar of the city club, that small section of Odense, the downtown where all the clubs are and all the stores, all the youth, has turned into a bit of a disaster area, or it would certainly seem it. If it was on a larger scale, this many ambulances, police cars, fire engines heading in one direction would seem to be some kind of major catastrophe. Fact is, Odense, despite being the third largest city in Denmark, isn't a large city. And so when something strange like this happens, there's a lot of mortal response. Emergency services rush to the scene, see what they can do to help. But there's also a lot of supernatural response. Things like this just don't happen in sleepy little cities like Odense. Cities rich in history, but not rich in action. Cities that idle by with good food, quiet times, and lack of conflict. When someone sets themselves on fire, and that's the story that's going through town immediately after. This isn't an accident. This wasn't some mistake at the petrol station. This was someone who willfully poured alcohol over themselves from head to toe, struck their lighter, and in front of an audience of hundreds attending the club this night, went up like a Roman candle. A little bit of time has passed. Only a little. Maya, our Promethean, and Thomas, our werewolf, were in the club when it happened. Naturally, despite themselves perhaps, they backed away from this small inferno. It doesn't matter how supernatural you are, how inhuman. When someone sets themselves alight, it's disquieting. And disquiet is a good word to use at this point. Because the angst, the concern from an individual like Maya at a point like this, what do I do? How do I react? Is enough to start unsettling people around her. Worryingly, troublingly. No matter how quickly the staff pulled out fire extinguishers and tried to put out the blaze, no matter how quickly the fire brigade turned up, this is an active crime scene. The police don't want anyone leaving the building. People have been sequestered off into side rooms, into the pool hall, into the upstairs, in some case into the bathrooms. And now a tape has been put up around the woman's burnt remains. Maya and Thomas are in that pool hall off to the side where Thomas was until recently, working away until he was disrupted by his packmate. Lots of people are on their phones in here right now. And I turn it over to our created and our pure to take away the scene.
First of all, is Garrett still in the pool hall with us as well?
Garrett is still in the pool hall. He looked initially for a way to get out, but the rush of mortals, in all fairness to the owner of the nightclub, he acted promptly, closing the doors once the fire was secured because he knew no one would be allowed out and he would get in trouble with the authorities if it allowed it. Garrett strongly considered vocally knocking the doors down and even tried to rally some of the weak humans to do so for him. But in the end, he just didn't consider it worth the bother. He stuck an elbow into your arm, said, "Looks like we're trapped in here together, Thomas. So the two of us are going to be buddies all night. Let's see if we can't scare up a little meal."
I'm pretty sure things are people are pretty scared as it is.
I see you've still got your friend with you.
Did you want me to lose her?
Well, I don't think she's going to go anywhere right now. She's following you around like a lost puppy.
I'm kind of leaning, not like uncomfortably close, but kind of like just so he can hear, and she doesn't. Like I still don't know what she is, but I'm working on it.
Well, what I can tell you, she doesn't have the bearing, the odor, the action of a simple one of the living. I think she's got spiders in her. Maybe give her a scratch and see what pours out. Not in here, though. Not in here. There's already a little too much attention.
It's definitely something to consider.
How about it, lady? He looks over at Maya.
Oh, God.
Maya would look at Garrett, and she's been paying attention to him lately. She's very interested in Garrett because he acts very differently in different situations. So she's been watching him. And Maya has decided that while she doesn't necessarily like Garrett, for whatever that word means, she finds him fascinating and believes that he is trying very, very hard to make up for something, for lack of a better word. So she sees him being mean. She knows that Thomas doesn't like mean people. So she kind of assumes that there must be something redeeming about him. And the only thing that she can think of, given his comments that the two of them are going to be buddies all night long, is that Garrett has followed Thomas to this gay club in an attempt to woo him. So Maya kind of feels like she's intruding at this point. She doesn't know what they're talking about, scratching, clawing. She's not really sure what any of that means, but she's interested in this conversation, so she just kind of nods and agrees and says, sure, whatever.
He just watches her somewhat robotic motion, looks back to Thomas and says, yeah, definitely something inhuman about her. What have you got stored up inside you, lady?
Well, there's a motherboard and a circuit board, and there's a few wires, and there's a Wi-Fi adapter, and I think there might be, I have to get back to you on that. Maya kind of like turns and starts looking at herself to peel up her panels, and she's not really sure what she's got going on in there. That's a good question, so she's gonna find out.
In all the chaos that's going on, you're all quite pressed in with a lot of other survivors of the tragedy. Only one person was killed, another person was injured. They were set on fire, but the fire was quickly put out. Garrett, though, finds Maya disturbing on a different level, backs up a little, says, she's all yours, Thomas. You deal with her. Okay.
Will do.
You know what the Odin's Tower wants of us when foreigners show up in this city of ours.
I do.
Don't piss off our totem. But that's not my responsibility. That's your responsibility. I'm going to stalk around some of the people in here and get a big waft of what's good.
Well, enjoy yourself and try not to, just be yourself. Not like I can stop you.
Well, what happened at the bar? I fancy barbecue. And he stalks off into the crowd. It's around this time that Connor and Liza, who have made introductions to themselves, to each other, I should say, turn up at the bar. However, gaining entry is an impossibility, it would appear. The mortal authorities have secured this place, and people are now being let out one by one, being interviewed, having their details taken. Again, it may seem like overkill. There's a couple of hundred people here, and to be honest, by the sounds of it, the police do think it's overkill, but they also know that they have to do this. The two of you followed the noise, the sound of sirens, it was appropriate. The sound of sirens raging outside, and merely because it is so unusual, that many ambulances, that many police cars, given the rather ominous message that you had received from Lady Goldacre and your new wizard and friend, Takami, it seemed the appropriate place to go. But getting inside, that may be a different story.
Well. Liza, can you get yourself inside?
That might be a challenge. That might be tricky.
Okay, let's find a window we can get you in then. So I'm gonna walk around the side. I can turn intangible, so I'm looking for anything I can open up to let Liza through.
While we're outside, I'm assuming there's like crowds-ish around. Does Liza notice any other people that would have pinged her family resemblance? Any other members of the supernatural community that she's not yet familiar with?
That's a good question. You see one, and based on the resemblances that you recognize, you see someone who, by every scientific rationale, should not be standing. They resemble someone who should be on a mortuary slab. Skin completely sallow, eyes, pinpricks in their head. It's only for a flicker before you see this man, quite thin, wiry, standing around outside. Standing's actually too mild a word. Pacing, looking a bit agitated about what's gone on inside. Based on his suit, you can't imagine he was a patron here. So, just to check with Connor, you're looking for methods of entry. Could you elaborate?
Yes, I'm looking for doors that are currently barred, back doors, windows into, those barred bathroom windows, anything like that. Specifically, I'd be going around the sides and the back because the front is going to have too many people milling about.
There are too many people milling about by the front. The side entrance, which would serve the staff and also is where the beer deliveries and the like come in, is already it's only blocked by one police officer, and she seems particularly disinterested. But floor level windows across the main bulk of the club don't exist. As with many nightclubs, it's sealed off. The bathroom, however, you are quite correct. There are windows that at a push an adult could squeeze between. They're not barred, and in fact they're still open to the air.
So they're already open. So I would point out to Liza that this is a potential way to go in if that's what you're thinking.
I mean, I'll give it a try. If it doesn't work, then could probably find some way to work over. single guarded entrances, but hey, you know what? I'll give it a try. Try and see if I can squeeze in there.
I think, I should also add, there is a fire escape that goes up the back of the building. This building does have multiple stories, and it is possible to access it on the next story up. The door is not blocked, but you would assume it might be locked. So if the window doesn't appeal...
We could also go up there, and I could go to the other side and unlock the door.
That doesn't involve me cramming myself in a really tight space.
Yeah.
Probably the winning strategy there.
Okay. So I should, unless it's protected in some supernatural way, that should be fine. So we're gonna see if we can climb the fire escape without the police immediately going, "What's that clatter?" And running around back.
I'm not going to make you roll for that. Climbing up a fire escape discreetly, you're not under any pressure, no one's observing you. It's not too difficult to do, and it's not going to collapse underneath your feet.
Awesome. When we get to the top, you said there's a door. Instead of even checking if it's locked, because sometimes these doors are alarmed, what I'm going to do is I'm going to invoke Whispers of Morning, which is a royal contract. The loophole is I carry no weapons and wear no armor, which is currently true. And as far as I know, this is fully intangible. I can walk through barriers, etc., etc.
Yes, you are correct.
Okay.
How does the power manifest? Could you describe it for me?
Absolutely. So, in my case, anyone who can see the, kind of my seeming, as it were, everything begins to get, for a better word, dustier. I like to point to the scene in The Mummy, where the mummy is chasing them in the plane, and it is the face in the sandstorm. But it's very much that, but made out of like fine stone dust. But it's kind of a decoalescing of self, in which just becomes less and less solid, up until the point where they can only partially be seen. I think that makes sense.
I like it. Okay. And unlike the dust, you pass through the door as if you were immaterial and the dust was same. For a brief moment, you almost amalgamate with the material, the stuff of the door. But then you apparate through the other side, like forming out of atoms into the solid version of Connor.
Yes.
You were quite correct. On the other side of the door, you can see that this fire escape is hooked up to an alarm.
Okay. Is it one of the very simple ones that simply unhooking it will make it not go, or is this a more complicated piece of technology?
How skilled are you in the use of technology?
That is a very good question that I am going to answer by, well, I have a little. Like, I have a dot in crafts and a dot in computers. Like, that's I'm also architecture is my academic specialty. It's not really architecture, but it is a little.
Yeah. No. I think with a single dot in both of those things, you're able to ascertain whether something is a simple cable hookup or wired more deeply into the building. And yeah, it's something you could quite easily unplug from above the door.
I will do that and open the door.
The door opens for Liza.
Liza's coming, but yeah, that was a neat trick. I'd love to know more about that. Is it normal to have dead people, vampires lurking around? There's one of them out there, I think. That's not normal, right? Like, you guys have a lot of them here. Do you know? Do we have to have the vampires are real, just like your real conversation? Is that something.
I hadn't met any, but that does stand to reason. Do I know anything about vampires in the locale? Like,
you never interacted with any of them. You've never really had a reason to.
but I know that they exist, and I know that they are in town.
Yeah, you've no idea of numbers. You would imagine that if anyone knows anything about the vampires in Odense, it would have been, to use stereotypes, autumn or winter courtiers, certainly not spring. I mean, Lady Goldacre, if anyone knows, she probably would, but getting a straight answer out of her
costs a lot.
Yeah.
I'll say, a vampire outside. I mean, they do. They certainly have a presence in our fine little city. I'm not sure how big, although, that is potentially concerning. Maybe we should let them in too.
Maybe not though. Maybe we.
Also maybe not,
because we have no idea why they're here, what they're after. Can Liza feel any echoes of what happened in the primordial dream here? Like, does this count as something that was triggered by a supernatural cause?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you could. You can. You can't tell exactly what, but the main resonance you're picking up from the events here are less fear and more shock. It all happens too quickly for everyone in the club to run around screaming. It was a gasp, and this woman was probably dead within minutes of it occurring, or at least in shock and then dead. So, yeah. There's definitely ripples that have echoed throughout the club, but it's not on the scale of a deep foreboding terror.
But she knows that whatever happened here was not natural. She would pass on and be like, whatever happened here, whatever got all the sirens, I think we're on the right track, because it was not natural at all. We should be a little careful, so we push onward. And if you go all ghost mode and abandon me, I'm gonna be very upset.
Oh no, that's not my duty within Spring. I am one of the Spring Warriors. I would not abandon you if you are someone who is with me. You are one of the party, one of the group, one of my friends, at least until you prove yourself otherwise.
Note to self: do not prove myself otherwise.
It's just disappointing when people do that.
So close the door up behind us. Do we hook the alarm back up? Do we leave that?
No, I would leave the alarm off for now, as this is a mode of egress for us. And setting the alarm off again will certainly cause people to look. So I would leave it off for now.
Okay. Let's go take a look and see what's going on in here.
Yeah.
You descend into the club from the upper floor. Even passing through this part, you rub shoulders with clubbers who just haven't attempted to escape. People here are being law-abiding, or perhaps just too afraid of getting a record if they piss off the police. After all, it looks suspect when you try to flee a crime scene. So you make your way through the club, trying to look for familiar faces, see what you can see. It's quite obvious as soon as you enter onto the gantry that there was something that took place down by the bar, and while the odor in the air has long since passed, it's easy enough to see that a blanket has been draped over the form of a body, which has been taped off. Presumably they're waiting for coroners to come in after they analyze the crime scene, as you've seen on TV. But as in the main section of the club, there's very few people. There's a line being formed from the lounge area where a police officer is basically commanding people to go through the door, give your name, give your address, tell us anything you saw, and off you go. So, yeah, the club is slowly funneling people out. In this sea of bodies, and there's not that many, it's not that difficult to identify a familiar face, especially one that is acting with less discretion than some of the others. Maya is a fairly easy figure to identify. She's stood rather upright, rather coolly, rather dispassionately compared to the frantic talking of everyone else. Everyone's on their phone, everyone's taking photos, people are sending text messages to say, I'm going to be home late, something's happened at the club. Maya, in the pool hall, which you can see from where you are, is just stood by the table, maybe rolling some balls around to keep the joints in motion. And there's a young man beside her. You don't recognize him immediately, but maybe that's just because you're not close enough to do so.
Also, how's the smell?
The smell of charred flesh has largely passed.
Okay.
It's been several minutes. It's probably been about 30 minutes since the incident, and the air conditioning in the club hasn't turned off at any point.
Okay, not too bad then.
No.
On seeing Maya, who does not really understand how to human, I'm going to turn to Liza and say, well, I'm hoping she doesn't have anything to do with what happened, but she's certainly going to get given problems by the police because she doesn't know how to answer the questions. So let's go and say hello to a acquaintance of mine.
Liza would kind of point over at mine and be like, her? I don't know. Huh. How did
I run into her.
No. And then presumably, can Liza identify by a family resemblance that Thomas is a werewolf?
Yeah, if you're essentially doing a read on everyone, well, especially anyone hanging around Maya, it doesn't take you long to realize that there's something a little wolfy about Thomas. You're not able to see his eyes. There's no moonlight reflection that you can identify from where you are, but you can see you often see it in the form of flickers, like a signal that's struggling to come through, and his form just seems to shift and flicker in and out of everything from Gauru through to wolf form, back to human again.
So as I was point out, it looks like she made a furry friend.
I didn't think they allowed pets in here. I'm looking for like a cat.
As you say that, Liza, pointing downstairs, you get shouldered, and there's another one of these flickering werewolves on the same floor as you. Watch where you're going. You're a curious kind of animal, aren't you? I was looking for something like you, wondering whether something like you would cause something like this.
She kind of like shakes her shoulders like, afraid I can't take credit, but you sound like you know what happened here.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to be sharing it with an outsider like you, am I? Why don't you go see the little boy downstairs? I see you've been eyeing him up. he's got a duty to interview people like you, and frankly, I'm a bit busy and out of sorts. He's not even cast a second glance towards Connor.
Oh, poor puppy. Okay.
Liza would, looking in his eyes, be like, okay, well, yeah, you don't have to share what you've learned, but just don't let that knowledge eat away at you. And says that kind of pointedly as she activates You're Infected by the Knowledge, one of her nightmares, as part of this posturing endeavor. So let me pull that up.
Is there any brick in this club, or is this an all wood establishment?
Well, no, there'll be brick in this club.
Wonderful, just in case I need to pull a sword out of the wall. Just in case.
So it looks like that'll be my presence and satiety versus his stamina and primal urge is the werewolf power stat, yeah.
Well, if you, you're going to be looking to get 4 successes in this case.
That is a tough roll to make.
It is.
Oh, nowhere close. 1 success.
It's a lot easier to implant a nightmare in a simple mortal than it is in a werewolf.
Supernatural tolerance.
Yeah,
It's
but
a bitch.
he does grin at you. He's unaware of the power as far as you can tell. When you do get downstairs, ask the little boy whose territory this is. He needs to be reminding people like you. And Garrett walks off past.
Pleasant. Very, very pleasant, that one.
Oh, I was quite certain he was an asshole. Sarcasm. I'm getting it. Let's go check out the downstairs so we're farther away from that stink of the man. Yeah, we'll go downstairs. I'm gonna make sure I know where the stone and brick is, just in case, as I said, I need to rip a weapon out of the wall and stab me a wolfie. Not that I really think that would be incredibly successful, but you gotta try.
Yeah.
When it comes down to it, you have to try.
Yes.
I don't
Some werewolves
want to.
just need a brick in the face, don't they?
Yeah.
You head on downstairs, the both of you, and you enter the same room. Our party is joined. We now have all 4 characters in the same location, and it has only taken us 3 sessions. So, well, technically 2 sessions, 3 videos.
Yes.
The magic of editing. We therefore see our 4 characters, some of whom know each other, some of whom don't. For the sake of the viewers, perhaps we could remind them which characters do know each other from before. It's quite clear that Connor has encountered Maya before. Thomas?
I think we'd established that Thomas has been in one of the Spring Court's pubs at some point, and that was basically as far as we know as far as he knows any of them. So that's yeah.
I believe I'm correct. And of course, while Liza is new to the city, she's already been taking a read on several of the creatures around here, hasn't she?
Yep, she's run into Maya once before when she'd gotten herself into a little bit of trouble with her disquiet and kind of gently extricated her from the situation since she was not affected by that disquiet.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't expecting to run into her again. That's unexpected. And very curious to see what impact she had on the events that took place here.
You're feeling that rather bitter, acrid taste in the roof of your mouth right now, Liza. that was similar to what you felt from the disquiet that Maya emanated before. It's not uncommon for created to produce that atmosphere during a time of stress or danger, and it just infects the humans around them. It certainly doesn't feel strong enough to have done whatever that was, and the people aren't raging against her. In fact, people seem to be ignoring Maya right now, quite pointedly. But maybe that's because their attentions are all focused elsewhere. So over to you, and of course, Connor, now that you're down in the same room, you recognize Thomas.
Ah, I do know this. Well, know is a relative term, but I have run into him before. Okay. Well, I think we would just make our way immediately over to Maya and Thomas. Not in the, steamrolly push people out of the way, but you said it's not so crowded that that's going to be a problem.
No, you can do that.
So yeah, we'll make our way over to the pool table that they're standing at, and I'll just walk, right up to Maya and ask her if she's having a good night.
Oh, hi, Connor. Hi, Liza. Well, I'm okay, but she's not, and I don't think they are. And, well, everyone says it's bad. So no, I'm not having a good night.
That's about the answer that I was expecting. So, okay. And I'm assuming that... Did someone do this to her, or was this a self-committed act?
No, she did it to herself, and I don't know why. She was pretty angry when I was following her before. She wasn't this angry. This was pretty angry, and I don't know, she didn't seem angry. She just kept drinking, and she set herself on fire. She did this to herself.
That's a pretty extreme response, but it does happen sometimes. Usually in protest, though.
Why do people set themselves on fire? Liza, why do people set themselves on fire?
I have absolutely no idea.
I mean, it's a way to die in a dramatic fashion and to scare everyone around you. Doesn't seem worth it, but yeah, no, if that was the point, it worked. I assume the police are questioning everyone.
Well, they haven't asked me anything, and they haven't asked Thomas anything.
That's good. Are they? Does it look like they're questioning everybody as they go out the door, or does it look like they're just gonna? Okay, so they're slowly cycling people through.
Mm-hmm. Better that than trying to manage everyone inside the club.
Okay. Well, I think I don't have enough time to coach Maya in how to respond to the police. So we may want to leave in the other direction. But is there anything any of us can do to figure out why this happened? Any sort of psychological insight? I can't do that kind of stuff. I might have friends who can, but I tend to not go that direction.
No response came a stern reply of your companions.
Well,
Yeah, Liza would share the brief insights she'd gotten before. Whatever it was wasn't natural, but can't go much further than that.
that's a lot, though.
If the victim wasn't totally dead, I could try and follow a psychic trail that they might have left behind. But
and did anyone see any other supernaturals around in the room behind the bar talking to her? That would specifically be something that could happen.
She got really mad at an old lady who wouldn't leave her alone. I think the old lady was trying to ask her on a date, and I guess she wasn't interested.
So she burned it away.
Apparently, it's a very extreme response to something.
Do you see that old lady here still?
Would Maya see the woman that had been interacting with her at the bar?
She is still there. She is in fact in the same room as you. Everyone from around the bar was put into this particular part of the club.
Maya just kind of looks around until she finds her and points her, and that's her.
Does she look like someone I recognize, or?
No, you don't recognize this woman at all.
Liza getting any kind of supernatural vibes off of her?
Nope, nothing.
Like, nope, she's boring. Definitely not who we're looking for.
Well, that's a dead end, but that's probably good. I'm gonna say if there's nothing we can do here, we should leave while the crowd is thicker. So we are less obviously missed. Thomas, do you want to come with as well?
At this point, can I do a roll to see if I recognize what the other two supernaturals are? I mean, because I wouldn't have met Connor in person, and I wouldn't have met Liza in person either. But sort of them speaking to Maya in a in like a friendly way might kind of be concerning that they might be something else as well.
Well, I think you've probably seen Connor in one of the Changeling bars, or Changing Run bars, so you're pretty confident as to what he is. Mm-hmm. By all means, you can make a roll to see whether you can determine what Liza is. I wouldn't say for a certainty that you know what primordials are unless you roll particularly well.
We said wits and primal urge last time.
I think we can go for that, yeah.
Two successes.
Well, it's quite apparent to you just from perhaps bearing, leaning, the mark she leaves in the shadow, perhaps, that Liza isn't mortal, but nor is she a spirit. If you had any kind of concern that you are now addressing three hosts, that is quickly nixed by the fact you are pretty certain Connor is one of the lost, or even though you may not have had many exchanges with him before. At two successes, you don't know what a beast is, but what you do know is this individual is not a werewolf, not a spirit, not mortal, so something else.
Okay, fair enough. I'll just keep that to myself and agree that we should shuffle out, basically. Yeah.
Okay, well, in that case, I'm going to narrate, because you will go back the way two of you came in, via the fire exit. By the look of it, Garrett has also exited via this way, because the door has just been left wide open. Either that or someone else has, and you don't run into Garrett on the way up. The alarm was unplugged. Garrett didn't make that loud of an exit. So you exit through the fire escape. Check the staircase. Make sure no one's looking up, no one is. Again, despite the number of emergency services here, a lot of them are departing now, and no one is treating this like a major crime scene at this point. There doesn't appear to have been any suspicious activity, probably based on the sheer weight of statements that say, no, this woman just set herself on fire. It's the strangest thing I ever saw. And so you get back down to ground level. You're in the alley beside the club. You can go wherever you like at this point. It's late at night. Just gone midnight.
So Liza would turn to the person she can recognize as a werewolf and be like, can you do the tracking by smell thing, or is that rude to ask? Am I okay to ask that? Well, I asked that. Is that a thing you can do?
No, is that something I can do mechanically, kind of to track anything supernatural? I can I? That's more of a beast thing.
I don't think you can just. I don't think you can follow the trail of just anything supernatural. Well, for one thing, you'd need the odor of what it is you're trying to follow first, and what is it that you're trying to trace?
Yeah, I mean, what do you want me to follow?
I was just wondering, I mean, the one who died in there, if we could get any kind of insight into what led up to that besides a really bad pickup attempt, it might give us some kind of insight. I mean, there was also a vampire out here. We could go ask them questions. I don't know. This is also, I'm supposed to ask you whose territory this is. A very charming friend of yours, I think, was rather insistent that I ask you specifically that question.
Here's the thing. I know all of us non-humans do our things and have our societies in different ways, but Odense is territory of a particular type of werewolves, and he's trying to not give away too much. And we do try to keep things under wraps, and when things like this happen, it's cause for concern. We can't just leave it, and we can't leave a situation like that unresolved. And if any outsider has caused it, there will be repercussions. And if we can't set things right, there will be repercussions for us internally. It's not a threat. I'm not in no position to threaten 3 other people at the same time, but there are more of us, and if something were to happen, it will be bad news for probably all 3 of you.
Sounds like you have a vested interest in figuring this out too. I mean, because if you don't, then bad things happen to you.
Yes.
Oh.
There's a growl in Thomas's ear.
Oh god.
You can tell that it's at a spiritual level. And it's a voice that comes through, starting as a growl, turning into a crackle, like an old radio transmission. You recognize it. You can all hear your totem when it's particularly agitated. It's like a friend that never leaves you, especially in this city, especially your pack totem. Judge them. Judge them.
Great. Right. Just out of character, do I have to judge them in terms of I have to attack them right now? Just like mentally judge them? Is that?
Well, that's entirely up to you.
Oh, sure.
The totems, I guess, ban. Well, I will explain this for the sake of the viewers and for the sake of everyone around. Not that your characters are going to be aware of this. The Ivory Claw's spirit totem in Odense is the Odin Tower, or the Odinstanet, which is a spiritual reflection of an observation tower that was destroyed by the Nazis in the Second World War. There used to be in Odense. It was a very tall structure, quite prominent, until it was bombed and blew up. And it's, as an observation tower, still acts as defender of territory, an observer. It's a spy in the city that the pack uses to find its enemies quicker, ease the hunt. However, the Odin Tower's aspiration is for the pack to judge any foreign intruders into the city, because after all, it was destroyed by the Nazis. If a werewolf finds an outsider and deems them worthy of remaining in Odense, and that same outsider then harms the city in some way, the totem will basically spurn the werewolf for its lack of good judgment, to put it mildly. Its ban is a little more complex. It's a very paranoid spirit. It will not allow members of its pack to depart Odense en masse. There must always be protectors remaining. Members of the pack cannot leave. Maybe one, but anything more than that and the totem gets very agitated. So when it comes to judgment, how you choose to judge these people is up to you. The repercussions fall upon you if your judgment is incorrect.
Is there a way for me to speak in the first tongue that they wouldn't understand, but the totem will understand?
Yeah, definitely. I don't think any of the characters here are going to understand the first tongue.
I reply that I sort of like nod towards Maya and I say, I trust her because she wasn't the one who instigated it. The changeling, I know, but I doubt they do that kind of thing. This other one, I don't know what she is. I don't trust her.
Perhaps making matters worse, when he starts speaking in a language that seems not natural, Liza would like pull out her phone and start recording it.
The totem urges you. Spy. That one is a spy.
Can I? Okay, I'm just gonna. After just the night he's had, I'm going to attempt to just knock the phone out of her hand.
Rude.
We roll. You're recording me speaking. That's pretty rude. Do we want to roll for the attempt, or I mean?
She wouldn't be expecting it at all. So.
No, I think it's more dramatically appropriate that you just lash out and the phone goes clattering to the floor. However, if you like, Liza, you can make a. Ooh, let's see. I like the idea of luck sometimes. Just see whether your phone breaks. So I'm going to base that on willpower. Why not? It's the random stat. If you could roll your willpower, if you get even one success, your phone does not break.
Sorry about that. I had some issues with my dice roller. I actually got 3 successes. So
in that case, your phone is better than ever. It was really struggling to pick up that third bar, but after it smashes against the wall, bing, there it is. This werewolf must have a gift for machines.
So Liza would retrieve her phone off the ground, check a little bit, and kind of offer a "What the hell, man?" look over to Thomas and be like, "Self. Don't record the weird words." Got it. And then kind of pockets her phone. And then in general,
watch yourself. I mean, I'm not much, but you've met my friend. I say friend. But
charming.
You've met my charming packmate. And though I might not be able to do very much, he has a whale of a time when he gets excited.
Noted. However, we should be friends. Really, we should. Because I can probably help you with your figuring out what's going on here problem. A lot of resources at my disposal, and if I could just find someplace near here where something truly horrific happened and just kind of bask in that for a little bit, I could access those resources and help you. That was very charming just now, and your very charming friend. I could help you both figure out what you need to do in order to not suffer negative repercussions. So, just gonna throw that out there.
Fair enough for the time being. And I sort of just, as low a voice as possible in the first tongue, I'll just tell the totem, I will watch her.
We will watch you. The voice of the totem crackles away. Seems very unhappy with that resolution. No doubt it will be communicating back to Kalia about your decision.
Yeah,
Leaving-
I expect it. But sorry, carry on.
No, leaving the four of you in the quiet of the alley. There's no sirens. You've still got the occasional flash of blue coming down because there is still a police car out there. They've closed off the road. You can hear a bit of chatter around the front of the club. Sounds like the local news has arrived and to report on these events. But the city is yours.
Liza would go ahead and open up a bit about why she is here without really touching on what she is exactly, but share the invite she received to the city and the circumstances surrounding that, and then the information she had picked up from the changelings, recounting it all in vivid detail with her eidetic memory, in the hopes that by sharing some information, she can extract some information from Thomas or Maya moving forward. And would again stress the importance of finding somewhere nearby where the supernatural has really, truly taken hold.
What kind of taken hold?
You know,
Like hang out a bunch, or like slaughter each other, or like eat people?
the last one would be fantastic. But scaring people a lot, that would work. When people, and by people I mean mortals, experience encounters with people like me or family like you, it tends to leave echoes in what I like to call the dark dream, which is those echoes can be harnessed to give power, and I think they might be a path forward for us here.
So you need places that people have been scared really badly, supernaturally.
Or killed. Yeah, I mean, presumably they get terrified.
Well, usually you're scared when you get killed.
Yeah, I
but
mean, unless
maybe
it's
not.
totally unexpected. I mean, if it's just werewolf rips your head off, that's just.
I mean, I could
That's
ask. I could ask the Autumns. Like, they would know.
I bet does the all of the very charming werewolves nearby. Do you eat people? Maybe is that a thing? Is that?
Not even commenting, like not even, just no response.